So it's officially fall. I'm a little depressed because I love summer, I live for summer, but I am leaning into the cozier vibes. I do feel like this is the time of year where I make the most dramatic changes in terms of skincare routines, textures, products I use, and of course makeup as well, just in terms of color story, again, texture, richer textures, richer color tones. There are some old favorites as well as some new launches that have really caught my attention and have made their way into my routines. So let's get into it. I think I'm gonna start with skincare. I do feel like being in my 30s, I'm seeing some changes in my skin. I'm still oily, still sort of shine prone, but I do feel like I'm a lot more normal and sometimes even dry. So I am incorporating just like creamier, richer, milkier textures overall. So one of the steps that really does change for me in the winter is my cleansing step, specifically my second cleanse. First cleanse I kind of do all the time regardless. I've been loving this gel cleanser this year. I actually already emptied one. I'm on my second one. It's the Dr. Sam's Flawless Cleanser. I mean, it's actually pretty hydrating for a gel cleanser. It actually is kind of a stiff gel, so it gives you time to really work it into the skin. It's great for sensitive skin. It's given me such a thorough but gentle cleanse. But I do feel like sometimes I want something a little bit milkier, a little bit richer, especially in the mornings where I'm only using one cleanser. So I actually have two cream cleansers. Both are old favorites of mine. The first one is the Kate Somerville Delicate Soothing Cleanser. This is a very sort of loose cream cleanser, but I feel like it's super hydrating without being so emollient that it leaves a film on the skin or anything. It actually does wash clean. If you have oily skin, the Matinee Cream Cleanser is actually my favorite cream cleanser for normal to oily skin types because it has a little bit of silt. It has a little bit of silt in it, and it gives you this sort of like purifying creamy cleanse, which I feel like is actually pretty unique in the world of cream cleansers. I've talked about this before too. So yeah, creamy cleansers for my second cleanse or just my morning cleanse. Moving on to toner, this is the time of the year where I switch from more watery toners to milky toners. This is actually one I just emptied. It's the Torridon Dive In Toner, low molecular hyaluronic acid toner. It's very fluid, very watery, very, very lightweight. I actually loved it. My skin really drank it up. There's no heaviness to it. That's why I really loved it for the summer. You can see I have like just a tiny like one use left. But I do find in cooler months, I actually really like switching to a milky essence, a milky toner, because it's a way of bringing emollients and sort of lipid rich textures into my routines that won't clog my pores. Because I am still so congestion prone at the end of the day, I find that a looser, like more fluid milky texture really agrees with my skin. So I have three that I want to mention here. I think I've talked about them all before. The first one is the Rhode Glazing Milk. This might be the most emollient of the bunch. It's very rich. I can actually use it as like a daytime moisturizer. I emptied 1 or 2 bottles of this last year. I love that it's fragrance free. It's a great option for sensitive skin. The other one that I emptied also earlier this year, this is my second bottle, is the Ilia Base Face Milk. Also a beautiful way of bringing that sort of milky, richer, not greasy, but just richer texture into your skincare. It also layers really well under makeup. And this one is an old favorite. I've gone through several bottles of this. This is the Dr. Curicle Vegan Kombucha Tea Essence. It's a bi-phase product, so you have the lipids on top, that cream layer, and then you have the humectants on the bottom to hydrate, and then you just mix it up. I feel like this is probably the lightest of these three that I've mentioned because it does have that really humectant base. This is one I can actually wear year round because it's not so rich and milky. And then speaking of bringing in biphase milky textures, this is my current new favorite serum. This is from Sungbun Editor, which is the brand that makes those overnight collagen masks. So this is their deep collagen anti-wrinkle cream in serum. I just actually shook it around a little bit, but you can start to see it separate. So kind of like the vegan kombucha essence, this has a cream layer on top with a more hydrating layer on bottom, but it is not as rich as these milky toners. I would say it's on the more fluid, lightweight side. So if you want something lighter, but you still want to add in a little bit of richness and milkiness, this is a great option. It's also great for sensitive skin. It's fragrance free, so you shake it, and this one has a dropper format. And I find that it's really easy to layer into any skincare routine because it's not active. It's something that I can use in the morning. It's something I can use at night alongside actives to help sort of boost and heal my skin barrier when I'm in need of that. So I feel like I'm gonna be using this a ton. I already am, but especially going into fall and winter because there's always room for a slightly like juicier serum, and this is that serum. And then let's talk about skin treatments in terms of brightening the skin, treating pigmentation, stepping up retinoid use. I really like to amp up all of my skin treatments in the fall and winter, especially because I'm going to be in the sun way less and I can treat any sort of residual hyperpigmentation left over from being in the sun. Even though I try to avoid it as much as I can't help it. I live in California, so I get a lot of sun exposure. So I really try to use fall and winter to step up those treatments. This portion of the video is sponsored by Mother Science. You guys know I've worked with them throughout this year. It's a brand that I really trust because of their clinical research, the innovation of their ingredients. They are a very evidence-based skincare brand. And you've heard me talk about these before. I'm gonna show you clips of how I use each of these products. So let's talk about the Molecular Hero Serum first. This was the brand's first product, and it's actually what led me to the brand earlier this year. I did a whole dedicated portion of a video on how game-changing this was for clearing pigmentation for me. So their hero ingredient in both of their products is called malisasin. It's a potent antioxidant. I use it in the antioxidant slash pigment step of my skincare routines. And the thing I love about this is I've actually really pared back my vitamin C usage this year. I felt like I was having some issues with it in my skincare routines, but I love that this gives me antioxidant protection. And it's such a lovely gel texture that wears and layers under other skincare. It plays well with others in my morning routines or my nighttime routines. And I've really seen such a visible difference with the Molecular Hero Serum. I actually do have 2 big breakouts right now, 2 cystic breakouts, which are totally my fault. I picked at my skin just like 2 little clogged pores and then they became like cystic breakouts. I have one here and one along my jawline. I know now that as soon as I have a breakout, I start using the Molecular Hero Serum as well as the retinoid Synergist, but specifically the Molecular Hero Serum to start treating pigmentation before it really sets in as PIH. And I feel like it just dramatically shortens the, I don't know, like the scar tissue and that red pigment that comes through after a breakout. It dramatically shortens that time. Here's what the texture looks like. You can see it's this hydrating gel texture. It also doesn't have any fragrance and it doesn't irritate my skin at all. And I have been really reactive and sensitive this year, my skin just overall. So finding a serum that could actually treat my pigmentation without irritating my skin has been really, really key for me. And it's just been a consistent presence in my skincare routines this whole year. And then in the fall and winter, I also like to step up my retinoid usage. And earlier this year, Mother Science came out with their Retinol Synergist. This also contains malisasin, and it really does work in synergy with the retinol to kind of improve skin turnover. For me, retinoids are a must-have in my routines for softening signs of aging, but also for skin brightness and clarity and even tone. And it's also a must-have for me for refining skin texture overall. So these 2 are obviously hero products in my routines. I do have a discount code. I'll include that with links to everything below, along with everything else. Then for the final step, I would say I'm switching out lighter moisturizers with slightly richer moisturizers, but I am very picky because my skin is so congestion prone. I can't just use any rich moisturizer. It has to be very specific for my skin. So I actually just emptied the Lab by Blanc Dews Oligo Hyaluronic Calming Cream. This was a really lovely, lightweight cream, great for sensitive skin. And I actually just switched it out for Dr. Sam's Flawless Intense Moisturizer. I was nervous about this because Intense is in the name and they do say it's for drier, irritated skin, but I really trust Dr. Sam's formulations and I really love that it's rich without congesting the skin, without clogging the pores, without feeling like a heavy film on the skin, and it's also fragrance free like this. And then when I absolutely absolutely need like serious hardcore skin healing, that's when I go for the Avène Sickle Fate, which I've emptied like 10 times now. And of course, even though it's winter, I'm still slathering on SPF every single day. I really think this is going to make it in my 2024 favorites as my favorite SPF. It's the Skin 1004 Tea Tree Soothing Sun Milk SPF 50 PA4 pluses. I've talked about it a ton. It's milky, it's fluid, it's beautiful. It's such a good SPF. And of course, you still need SPF in the winter, especially if you are using those actives like the retinoids, like the treatment serums. You definitely want to use sun protection. I feel like that segues sort of into makeup and skin prep for makeup. I don't always go for a primer, but lately I have been reaching for this a lot. This is Merit's newest release. It's their Great Skin Priming Moisturizer, and it is the sister product to their Great Skin Serum, which I also love. It's that bi-phase serum. This is something you could honestly use on its own as skincare, or I also like to use it as my AM moisturizer under SPF for a priming effect. And this is really interesting because it kind of goes against a lot of things that I like in primers. So it's a quite stiff texture. I'll show you how it pumps out. You can see like it really holds its form. It is on the richer side. There's a bit of emollients to it, but as it spreads out and sets down, it creates this kind of like velvety dry down. And I feel like that makes for a good primer because it creates a nice even canvas for everything that's going to come on top of it. I wouldn't say it's exactly grippy, but it does have a slightly velvety, like tacky feel to it that's going to hold on to makeup. And again, it's not like a silicone, like pore filling primer, but it does seem to create a really nice, like even skin texture and canvas for makeup that comes on top. I also like that they say you can use this before your next step, whether that's SPF or makeup. I feel like it makes it easier to use in your moisturizer step before your SPF if you don't want to disturb your SPF coverage. And then after like many years of super glowy, super dewy skin, I feel like we're starting to see the return of velvet skin. Not super matte, but like a modern matte that's sort of refined and blurred. And I have a couple of powders that I've been turning to. I've always had powders in my routines because I'm oily prone. So I obviously have my favorite setting powders. I like the Mob Beauty one. I like the Fit Glow Beauty one. Those are loose powders. But I have a couple of pressed powders that I've been using a lot to create that really velvet refined look, either as a finishing powder or to touch up throughout the day. So the newest one in my life is the Rare Beauty powder, and this is a tinted powder. This is the shade Light Beige. It's a little deep for me right now because I am pretty pale at the moment, but let me just show you. This is the CL Sculpt brush. I'll take the powder side. It's really nice because it's pretty hard pressed. Like you don't get a lot of kick up with this powder at all, but it's really nice for blurring the skin, for refining the pores. It kind of just makes the skin look smoother without being totally mattified and without totally taking away the glow either. A tinted powder is also nice because I feel like if your makeup or foundation is a little too dewy, maybe it starts to separate like around the nose. That's where I'm prone to it. I feel like it just fills in the gaps of whatever's separated, or if there's any like patchiness coming through, it's a great easy fix for that kind of thing. The other powder is not new, but I feel like it's having a new moment. It's the Fenty Invisimatte Blotting Powder, and this, if you want seriously matte skin and if you're very oily, this is the one for you. It comes with a little puff. I find that this is my most mattifying powder of all of the ones that I have. And it's also very, very like super lightweight. Those are my two picks. This one is not tinted. This one's just translucent, but they're both great options. And then getting into some like color story changes, just overall like mood board changes, I'm definitely bringing in more cooler tones. I also tend to do more smoky eyes in the winter. I don't really do a smoky eye in the summer at all. This is not new. This is probably gonna be my most used palette this year. It's still the Makeup by Mario Neutrals palette, which is a very neutral slash cool leaning palette. You guys have seen me use it a bunch before. I have been reaching for it a ton. I use it, if I'm wearing eyeshadow, I'm probably using this. Which reminds me, I had my color analysis done like a little over a month ago in K-Town. I posted about it on Instagram and TikTok. I'll link that in the description box. Much to my surprise, I found out that my best color season is Pale Winter. Shocker. Well, it's kind of like what I'm wearing today. Also Vivid Winter. But my best tones tend to be cool tones instead of warm tones, which really shocked me because I feel like even just 2-3 years ago, I would have said warm tones look best on me. But I feel like my skin tone might be changing a little bit. I definitely spend a lot less time in the sun than I used to, certainly 10 years ago. So I feel like I'm leaning into more of that cool toned vibe, and it's really changing the way I think of makeup and how I do makeup. I have a lot of thoughts about this. I'll save it for another video. I don't think you should take this as Bible. Obviously, this is kind of just something I did for fun. I do think there's something culturally interesting about the resurgence of color analysis as a sort of thing, like a cultural thing that people have caught on to. That's all to say, I am flirting more with cool tones. And I picked this one up. This is the M Cosmetics Divine Skies Saturn's Return palette. And it's definitely a cool tone palette, definitely smoky. I feel like going into October, November, it's a really good color story. It has just enough earthiness to ground it, but it also has some of these like more dramatic cool tone shades and taupes. And then I also still like my One and Done shadows, but I tend to like these sort of like murky olive greens, especially going into fall and winter. This is a new one in my life. This is the Jane Iredale Pencil Color Luxe eyeshadow stick. This is the color Ivy. It has the most beautiful like smoky, very, very deep olive, slightly shimmery shade. It's great as an eyeliner. It almost has a gunmetal quality to it, or it's great just to smoke out the lash line just with a buffing brush. So this whole line is really beautiful, but this is definitely a shade that I reach for pretty much exclusively in the fall and winter. It's also really great for like holidays, holiday parties, that sort of thing. And then the last major color switch that I make in fall and winter is bringing in berry tones, blue-based reds, burgundies, that sort of richer red tone in terms of like blush and lip colors, as opposed to like cherry reds and baby pinks. I feel like I wore that a ton in spring and summer. I'm not gonna put them all away, but I feel like bringing in those like smokier, more dramatic reds is a fun way to sort of lean into the season. So a couple of like standout berry toned pieces is a fun way to sort of diversify the color palette, bring in some new tones. So a couple of things that I've been playing with lately. This is not new, but this shade is new to me. It's the Merit Flesh Balm in the shade Après. I do have my full Merit review, but this is a new shade since I've done that review. And it looks quite deep in the pot, obviously, or in its balm form, but swatched, it has this beautiful like fresh vibrancy that comes through. Definitely like a true pinky berry. That's been a really fun blush shade. I also just reviewed these. This is the Live Tinted Hue Glow Blush Crush. This is the shade Infatuated. I just reviewed all 4 of these shades, but this is another great, like beautiful, this is like a true berry. It's quite pigmented, but you can sheer it out. It blends out really, really nicely. It does have a doe foot applicator, but it is like a serum-y consistency, so it does sheer out. And then I have what I'm wearing on my lips now. This is the Violette Bisou Jelly, which is their newest lip formula. They've had their Bisou Balm before, which I've reviewed. I love. It's like a sheer matte tinted balm. That one gives you more of like a blurred lip. This one is so fun. So it's a jelly, and it actually has a really pigmented core, and then it has this like sheer color that surrounds the core like within the tube. I don't know if I'm describing that very well, but it's like sheer on the outside and it's more pigmented in the middle. And this is a very, very like buildable lip balm. It's all I'm wearing right now. This is the shade Aisa. One swipe won't give you a ton of pigment. I already have some on, but I'll reapply just to show you. One swipe won't give you a ton of pigment, but it is buildable. And it's super comfortable on the lips. It has a bit of shine. The texture itself isn't very thick. It's not like a melty, creamy balm. It's on the waxier side, but I feel like that makes it a little bit longer lasting. And it also helps maintain that translucency on the lips. But it gives you, especially this shade, it gives you a slightly like wine stain sort of lip. It maintains like the natural texture of your lips, which I like. I feel like there's something understated about that. So this is another wine sort of shade that I have been gravitating to a lot. So those are all of the seasonal switches I'm making in skincare and makeup going into fall and winter. I would love to hear if you have any switches that you make around this time of year, anything you think I should check out. And of course, I will have everything linked below. I would love for you to follow along and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.